welcome to Thez Nutz Garage. And today we're working on the 1999 F-150. This is a continuation of the stereo install that I done. When I installed that radio, I had to cut part of the factory bezel, which there was a bar that ran across through here. And when I did that, it kind of left some nasty looking edges. And I thought about trying to sand that down and bondoing it and fixing it. But looking on eBay, I stumbled across this, in which this is a bezel out of an Expedition. I don't know, 97 to whatever, 04, 03. So this was the higher end version of the Expedition. It did not have the manual controls. It had all digital climate control and a fancier radio. So what I'm going to have to do, since this doesn't match the color of my truck, is I'm going to have to paint it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be airbrushing it, and in order to match the paint, I'm going to have to, I'm just going to have to mix the paint myself. So that'll be, I think that's a water-based paint, and then when I paint it, I'll have to put a clear coat on it, which I'll probably put a matte finish so it kind of matches the truck, because it's kind of a dull finish anyway. And it doesn't have to be exact, but I want to get it as close as I can, so that way there's some other little spots, like if you notice here on the bezel, it's got some nicks in it here and there, and part of my dash on the inside of my truck does as well. So what I'm hoping to be able to do is be able to go in there and touch up those places with that airbrush. Airbrushes don't put a lot of overspray, so going inside the truck and kind of touching up those areas will be easy to do. So first thing we're going to have to do is, when I bought this one, it did not have the passenger side airbag switch here. I already have that, so we're not going to worry about taking it off. But I need to remove the vents, and then I need to remove these vent covers right here, because I need to paint these. And this doesn't need to. This needs to stay black, and the vents inside need to stay black. So I got to remove the vents, and then I have to disassemble them. So this is basically, I think, a 7/32 little nut. And probably what I'm going to do is do this in a couple of stages. So the first part will be me disassembling this. The second part will be me, what I'm going to do is scuff up the outer edge with some 320 sandpaper. And then I have some epoxy bonding paint. You can't just paint plastic with paint, spray can paint, even automotive paint. It won't stick. So we've got to give something for the paint to stick to, and this bonding agent will stick to the plastic, then the paint will stick to the bonding agent. So looks like I have these little tabs right here. Just gonna kind of pop them back. Just be easy with it. There's two more on this side. And you can do this by, which I'm not going to, but you can actually color match these to your car. So like if the outside of my truck is white, I could actually paint all these grill facings, this bezel white, to match the exterior of the truck, which wouldn't be a bad idea, but it just in the tan truck, that's the only thing white, it kind of just sticks out. So I have basically the same thing. I have 4 tabs over here, 1, 2, 3, 4. You just gotta put the screwdriver in there and it'll pop itself right out. So this is pretty much ready to paint, other than, we got to sand it, we got to put our bonding primer on it, and that's already disassembled. So now we have these vents. What I want is these right here, because I want to paint them the same color as that, but I want to leave all the internals black. So I guess you just push down, and when you push down on it, they just pop right out. Push down and just pop right out. So, but now we still have these little louvers. Sometimes these, looks like we got at the very bottom some little clips. And I'm thinking that louvers we'll just push down. Come in here with our screwdriver. I guess we'll have to pry up right there a little bit, pull out. And when you do the bottom, that just snaps right out. So now the only thing there is what we want to paint. And when you're dealing with vehicles this old, it looks like there was some pieces of something that were broke right there. From where, I do not know. But be really careful, because these are plastic and they can be brittle. And they can just break. And then off to the salvage yard you're going to go trying to find them. And that just pops right out. So what we'll do next is we will get some 320 sandpaper and just scuff this up really good just to make it rough. And then what we'll do is I'll come back and we'll spray them. So now we're back. I've got some paint thinner here. Cleans and thins. Thins, oils, whatever. Cleans is what we're trying to do with it right now. I'm just going to put a little bit on my rag. You see me in the time-lapse video really quick sanding this down. And basically I'm just trying to scuff it up. Anywhere there was some paint missing, I just tried to maybe sand it just a tad bit more. But with this primer that I'm fixing to use, we'll put it on here, and then we'll probably may go back with another different primer to fill in any of these little gaps. But what this is just a paint thinner. I'm just gonna wipe my parts, these paint panels down, so that way when I spray this primer on it, their parts are clean. That way the primer sticks correctly. Like I said, this is a bonding primer. It will dadgum near stick to anything. So when you're using it, just it'll stick to this plastic. I've used this before on a model railroad engine, and just painted the whole the engine, and it worked out pretty well. And what I'm going to try to do now is hold it on the back where I'm not touching it. I don't want him to get any oil from my hands on it. We're going to set that to the side. Just clean these up. We'll let them dry, which shouldn't take long. This is just a thinner. It'll be dry in no time. So I've got that all done. Do the last little vent. Probably the hardest part of this project here is mixing the paint and color matching it. It can be kind of tedious, but like I said, if you want to do it the quick way, say your car was white and you wanted to paint these parts white, you could just go to AutoZone or O'Reilly's and get some Duplicolor Oxford white paint, that's what my truck is, and put this primer on it and put another coat of primer, sand it down, clean it, and then spray it. That's a one coat paint that comes in a rattle can, and it'll look like the exterior of the car, have a shiny finish and all, especially if you kind of buffed it out a little bit. So I'm gonna throw this rag really far away because that's strong, and I'll be right back. So now what we have is our universal bonding primer. This is a Rust-Oleum product. Like I said, I've used it in the past. And what I'm basically gonna do is just paint everything white. This is a white primer, so I'm just gonna paint everything white. Try to get a good even coat on the way around it with no runs. You just kind of want to lightly dust it. First coat. So what I'm going to do now is let this dry for about 10-15 minutes. Then I'm going to come back and put another coat on it. I will do that about 2 more coats, and then that'll be it for the bonding primer. Alrighty, so I'm just leaving Hobby Lobby. I got 2 bottles of paint. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna head back home and call it a night and get up in the morning and I'll mix this paint, get it matched and get this bezel painted and then let it sit till tomorrow afternoon, and then hopefully I'll be able to go on and put my clear coat on it. So let's get back to the house. Alrighty, so I've made it back from Hobby Lobby and I've gotten 2 jars of acrylic paint. One is like an drab olive color, which is kind of like a tannish gray, green look. And then we got this, it's kind of like a light gray. Anytime you get a bottle of paint, you always want to wipe the top off and wipe out the inside of the lid, so that way when you put the cap back on the jar and you want to use it later on, it doesn't seal and you don't lose a jar of paint. I have a mixer. You never shake paint like in these little jars, because that puts paint up on that lid. You always want to keep them up, and that way you can keep reusing your jars. So this little tool is a mixer. You just stick it in your paint and you just turn it on and it'll mix up your paint. But never shake it. Always use some sort of little stir like this. So I've got a clean jar, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put about half of this green in here, and I'm gonna start from that point and try to color match it to this caribou color. So once I get all of that done, and I'm ready to set up and start airbrushing my bezel, I'll come back to you and I'll show you the airbrush techniques. Not many, but I'll show you some. Alrighty, so I've got my paint mixed and I finally got it close enough that I can be happy with it. When I first started mixing this, you can see that this green was kind of what I was getting. Had that drab olive and then I put a little gray in it and brought it down to a lighter green. So what I needed to do is get it to a brown. So what I finally did is I think I mixed some black and some red together and white, and I finally got it down to this tan color. Well, once I got it to this lighter tan color, I could add black to bring it darker. So finally I've got it to this. And this area here above this, where my finger's at, that's the color that I finally got it to, which is pretty dang close, and I'm not gonna fool with it anymore. What I'll do is in the morning, come out here, I'll spray all my parts and get them to this color, let it sit for a few hours, then we'll clear it. Here's my primed parts. I'll hit them, scuff them up, sand them, and then we'll get them painted. And I'll see you in the morning. Now I have my paint in my airbrush gun. Basically, you're just gonna push this back, push it down and pull it all the way back. This is a dual action little airbrush. This is the cap, all my paint's in here. Normally it doesn't take a lot of paint to paint something, so when you're mixing this, don't think you gotta mix a gallon of it. But I'm not going to get into the specifications of the gun and all of that kind of stuff. It's not a real fancy one, but it's gonna do the job. So basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start airbrushing, and I'm just gonna kind of go in circles. It's kind of awkward that it's being in this box, but that's what I've got to deal with. So here we go. If the compressor kicks on while I'm doing this, I'll just turn the volume down. So let's get started. And holding these things are kind of awkward, you know, so people hold them a lot of different ways, but I'm gonna try to get started. You can see as you pull down and back, we'll have some come out, and it just takes a while to, I'm just gonna kind of go in circles. All right, so I'm back. I had a little problem with my airbrush gun. I had the wrong needle in it. So now it's pumping out what I need it to do. I think I put a 0.5 in it. It was starting to have a lot of problems, but now I can kind of hold it back and really get at it like it's supposed to be. With this big of a needle and this much pressure, it's pumping out quite a bit of paint, so you just want to make sure you don't get any runs. What I'm going to do too is go back over where I'd originally started, kind of starting my second coat, but got my vents painted, and I also have my dash bezel painted, and just holding them up together. They're pretty close. The bottom one still has to dry, but they're pretty close enough. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna clean up my mess and let everything dry for a few hours, and when I come back, I'll be putting this finish on it. This is like I said, it's a matte finish. It's a acrylic sealer, basically. Since this is acrylic paint, we can put this on there. This will make it have a dull finish, but it'll give it, you know, durability. So if you touch it or whatnot, it'll stand up. Another thing is on my bezel where your passenger side airbag, I've repainted over that. So now's the time if you wanted to go in with a paint pen and rewrite all that stuff, or use some decals or vinyl lettering before you put your sealer on. You would go on and put on your decals for stuff like that, and then put your sealer over the top of it. So I'm gonna get this mess cleaned up, and I'll be back. Alrighty, so I'm back out here in the garage. I've already put one coat of this matte finish acrylic sealer. Basically, it's a clear coat on the vents and the dash bezel. So what I'm gonna do is put in another coat on it. I'm just gonna dust it real quick and move along. Don't have to have a lot, doesn't take much. Just a little bit. I'm gonna turn it the other direction so that way it gets another side. Try not to touch these. I'm gonna probably let them sit for about 5 or 6 days. I have some more parts that are supposed to be coming in for the truck to finish up the radio install. So when I get all of those parts in, I'll finish this video up with that and show you how it looks in the truck. Set this bezel up here. Make sure that before you start putting clear on it, that if you need to wipe it down with some either paint prep wipes or mineral spirits or paint thinner, just real lightly to get any oils from your finger that may have gotten on it. So just trying to get it pretty quick. And since this is a matte finish, it's not going to be shiny, which I didn't want it shiny. Like I was talking about earlier, if you were going to put any type of decals on it, the best thing to do is just put maybe a couple of coats of clear, let it completely dry, and then when it's completely dry, maybe the next day or so, you can go back in and add decals. Maybe I wanted to put off and on for my my passenger side airbag, but I'm not going to. But if you wanted to add decals or anything like that, wait till you have your clear on it. Then you can go back and add a couple more coats of clear. What that's going to do is that's going to seal those decals or in between the layers so they won't peel off. So that's basically it. I will see you in a minute. Alrighty, so here is the dash bezel installed back in the truck. I have my radio, of course, installed back in the truck. And it just has a cleaner look by doing it that way. It just has a better look, more like a factory look would be. This down here is my USB plug for the back of the radio. It goes into the back of the radio. And you can see some of these little nicks here. What I'm going to do is the paint that I have left over from painting the dash bezel, I'm just going to mix that up, put it on a little brush, and kind of patch these little areas with a brush. And then do that a few times, 2 or 3 times, and then after that I'll probably spray a little bit of that matte finish in a little cup, and then I'll dab over the top of that to kind of seal it all in. Down here is the cords for my that I showed you earlier. This is the HDMI cable, the female end. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep it tucked away behind my electric brakes, and when I want to plug it up, I'll just take this cord that plugs into my phone, and I'll keep that in the glove box, so that way I can mirror whatever is on my phone on that radio. So thanks for watching, and please like the video, subscribe to our channel, and comment down below. That's very important. Even if it's just where you're from, or if you have this radio, or if you have one of these trucks, or it doesn't matter, just comment something. So just comment. That's all I'm asking, just comment. So have a blessed day, and see you next time.